Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsay Busfield. As personal injury lawyers expand their practices, some have their eyes on a national prize. Doing this requires vision, leadership, and budget. But where do you start? Nationally known for successfully representing clients in personal injury matters, Steve Levin, founding partner of Levin and Perconti, is an outstanding attorney and successful entrepreneur. In addition to representing people seeking better care for their elderly loved ones, he has built a law firm that has become one of the best in the nation at winning substantial verdicts and settlements for people affected by medical malpractice, nursing home neglect, birth injury, and other personal injury cases. Thank you so much for joining us today, Steve.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay.
Well, for those who didn't listen to our earlier episode together or who are unfamiliar with your law firm, tell us a bit about your national practice and how you got started.
Well, like many things in life, I got started. I started out with my last paycheck from my sole practitioner office to moving to my own office. And over time, we developed a substantial personal injury firm. That process, which had a lot of trial and error, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of failures and successes, was invaluable, I think, in structuring how I developed the practice later on. Sometime after I started as a personal injury area, the traditional areas of personal injury were sort of owned by the big brand name firms in those days, although they didn't call them brand name firms. So I was always hunting in the edges for where there was a need to help people and an opportunity to have substantial personal injury cases where a lawyer could make a living at it. And as a result of that, I fell upon nursing home cases. And I was referred a case by it was sort of a reverse of a typical case. I was referred a case by a mom whose son died a tragic death in a nursing home. He was significantly developmentally disabled when he was allowed to wander around the home and he fell down a flight of stairs. So that was my first nursing home case. As I researched that case, because the conventional wisdom in personal injury at that time was this fellow's life had no meaning. He didn't have a job. He didn't really have a lot of medical expenses. No one was dependent on him for support, although his mom certainly did love him. And that feeling was even magnified when you were dealing with an elderly resident of a nursing home. So the conventional wisdom was PI lawyers wouldn't take these cases because the outcome wouldn't merit the work that would go into it.
Right. There were no damages that you could really claim
Right.
as a result.
I never believed that, and I always believed that the real damages in any case, medical expenses are important, lost wages are very important, but the real damages that a lot of our cases are compensating for are the so-called non-economic damages or intangible damages. But more clearly, we view them as those are the heart of the cases. What have they taken away? Your mobility, your ability to enjoy life, your ability to engage in human relationships in the way you want to. I could go on and on and on. Nagging pain every single day. It's hard to translate those injuries into dollars, which is how our legal system works, but it turns out in my first case, as well as many, many, many cases subsequent there, ordinary citizens can grasp what it means to harm a person, and they are comfortable with the concept just because someone has significant medical conditions or significant disabilities or is not traditionally in the workplace or any of the number of reasons. You can still, when you harm them, they still suffer. And that suffering, that pain, that suffering, that disability is a compensable injury. So anyway, so going back, we started out in nursing homes on this first case, and I learned there was a law in Illinois, an unbelievable law in Illinois that was sort of like a civil rights action for nursing home residents that had been on the books for 10 years. No one till I first looked at it had ever used it. I don't know why people didn't notice it or wasn't publicized. And it was actually enacted by one of the famous Chicago mayors, Mayor Daley. His son, also Mayor Daley, was a legislator. And when he was in the state legislature, he passed this act. And no one had ever used it. And I started reading, I'm thinking, wow, this is like a civil rights action for nursing home residents. It allows for not only ordinary damages that we get in any negligence case or death case, but it allows for the recovery of attorney's fees. And at that point, it allowed for triple damages. Still, no one had ever used it. So I'm thinking, am I crazy or has the world missed something that is very, very significant? And so we filed the suit, and it turned out we prevailed. And I went to a national convention of nursing home lawyers at this time, and there was like 5 people there. Of course, now those same conventions will have 3,000 people. And there was a couple fellows I met from other states. So that sort of in a way got me thinking on a national basis. I began to start thinking that it wasn't as true then, because now we have electronic communication to the utmost degree, which simplifies everything I'm saying. But if you have a specialty in a certain area of PI law, people think of PI lawyers as all the same field, wrongful death, all the same field. But there's many, many, many subspecialties within the main specialty. And representing nursing home residents and their family is a specialty. The laws of the state that might govern the state can change, and you can, I mean, are different, I should say. But you can take that into account, and you can work around that. But the way to handle a case, the way to review the case, the way to look at the records, the way to decide who to sue, the way to prosecute certain injuries. Like, for example, it used to be when I first started saying, well, like if you're in a nursing home and you get bad treatment, what do you expect? Because no nursing home gives good treatment. Or if you're in a nursing home and you get malnourished and get bed sores, well, that's just what happens when you get old. And to this day, people still believe that. We said, no, 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 that's not true. Nursing homes residents and their families are entitled to a reasonable standard of care. And if you provide that, you will avoid the injuries that occur from not having enough staff, from not having enough support, from not doing simple, basic, but hard things, but they have to be done consistently. So once we realized that, a whole new field, if you look at it from a business point of view, of opportunity opened up for these kind of lawsuits, because unfortunately, uh, nursing homes do not give the care as a rule that they should give. And that's primarily because they're understaffed and under-supported and under-resources. And that's primarily because the desire to make a profit impacts the amount of staff and resources they devote to the home. So that's a big, big problem.
Well, and
And but
that
also,
problem is only compounded by the fact that people buy into this lie that nursing homes should all be terrible because that's what nursing homes are, and that you can only expect them to be terrible. And so part of the challenge with this particular specialty or niche is that you're not only combating the legal hurdles that go into this, but you're also taking on an educational role where you are explaining and convincing and selling to people that no, this shouldn't be the expectation, that there is a certain duty of care that goes along with this legally. And so putting that piece of it together it creates this really big challenge that you guys have taken on, but you've done so well, and it provides such a great service to the community and the people who are serviced by these nursing homes.
well, you're absolutely right, and thank you. And you really hit the nail on the head. And what myself and then others who have followed in our footsteps have done as a result of filing these suits, we certainly haven't solved all the problems in the world in the nursing home industry. But at the very least, we brought attention to the problem. At the very least, it's now the goal, at least,
Right.
to give reasonable care. And it's well recognized that if you don't give reasonable care, there are consequences, and that government alone doesn't have the resources to police nursing homes. So,
Right.
like personal injury lawyers did in many fields, tobacco, opiates, we have policed the field where government has been ineffective.
Well,
And it's
and
an ongoing battle. I wish I could say that all care was great, we'd be out of business, but it would be a better world. But that's not happening. But there's hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
moving in the right direction. And the more you do it, the more precedent is set and the more background other attorneys have to rely upon to build their cases and show in this similar case, XYZ was the outcome and should be the outcome. And especially on a national level, which you guys have pursued. And I know that the attorneys who are listening today are probably interested in growing their practices nationally or at least beyond their existing states. So, to kind of shift the conversation in that direction, I mentioned in the intro that in order to grow nationally, it takes vision, it takes leadership, and it takes budget to fund all of this behind it. So I want to walk through these three pieces kind of individually so that attorneys who are listening today who want to grow their practices have some guidance on what they can expect and what they need to be able to take those next steps. So first, talk to me about your vision. Clearly, we've spent some time talking about this particular practice area and the need for that. But when you were starting to grow this part of your business, what was the vision for your law firm initially, and what has influenced change in your vision for the expansion of this practice area?
Well, the initial vision was to be the best nursing home law representing nursing home residents and their families in Chicago and its surrounding counties. And then when I began to realize that these cases would have the same impact and the same workup anywhere else in the state, we expanded to Illinois. At the same time, being an early founder of this area of the law, I naturally had a network because there wasn't other people in Illinois to discuss these cases with other lawyers also starting these practices in other states. So I developed, as a result of that, a network of individuals to whom I knew I could refer cases to who were competent individuals. So then, as we get the internet and electronic, I mean, I know it's very hard to envision a time for someone younger where there wasn't the internet, and it was very hard to communicate with people. And national practices, I can't even imagine how they worked in our area. I don't think you could have it. But as communication became more and more sophisticated, I realized that the law firms are organized geographically by state typically. That's the traditional way to look at it because that's how it works. You're only licensed in a certain state. The laws of each state are a little bit different. All the relationships are in that state. So it was typically organized by state. It began to occur to me that that may be illogical, or another way of looking at it is organize it by specialty area. So if you forget about states and you say, well, nursing home cases have, wherever they are, have a core of the same, doing the same thing, knowing the same thing, knowing the players, knowing the experts, knowing the defenses, knowing the things that can go wrong. It's a unique body of knowledge as compared to personal injury as a whole. And my vision was, well, that can easily be transferred to other states. And so we started doing it, and there's different ways to do it. And now, as a practical business matter, who's ever listening, so will say, well, how do you get cases in other states? Well, there's only really a couple ways to do it. One, you develop a network of lawyers who know you, who will bring you in. And if they get a nursing home case in their jurisdiction, they say, well, we're a good PI firm. We want to work on it. But should we bring in a specialist to assist us? So that was one way, traditional networking. Secondly, the only other way is marketing. And many ways you could do the marketing. You can, it can be the extremely expensive way now, TV, all of social media. Unfortunately, with marketing nationally, there's no way to do it with a smaller spend. So you either have to do it yourself, the firm itself finances the marketing, or you do it in partnership with other people. So a number of our partners are national marketing law firms, and they know our name and we market ourselves to them because we've done national marketing ourselves and we know what they need. They need a quick review of the case. Because if you have never done a nursing home case before, you don't know how to review it. You have a mass of records and something went wrong and you literally would not know what to do. Literally, if you're doing it for the first time, it would take you 100 times longer than we can do in 5 minutes. So firms that refer you cases don't want their client to keep calling them and saying what's happening with the case. They prefer that for sure that you accept the case, but secondly, they prefer a quick decision and a thoughtful decision. So these principles and finding another key to the business is figuring out a way to get to cases, but another key to the business is if you're going to refer out or handle cases yourself in other jurisdictions, you need to develop a network of competent lawyers. That's really, really important. I think in today's world, people are referring cases, like people who get a lot of cases through some form of marketing are referring it throughout the country and they're not appropriately vetting the people that the case goes to.
Right.
It's sort of like there's a well-known lawyer who said he envisions the Google law firm where no matter what the case is, no matter where it happens, this is my version of probably his version. So I don't even know if I'm right. But the way I look at it is there's a specialty of saying to the potential legal client or legal consumer themselves is no matter what the case is, no matter what happens, call us. And if we don't handle it, we will make sure that it gets to the right person to handle it. And a client in Illinois has no way to determine how to find a lawyer in Arkansas or California or Idaho. So that's a specific skill set. And not only will we find the lawyer for you, we will monitor that lawyer to make sure things are going correctly. So we've done your due diligence as best as you can, and therefore you can be comfortable. And not only that, you have us to turn to as opposed to someone in a state that's 1,500 miles away.
Right.
So you need to develop that mindset. So as time went on, we became involved in birth injury cases in Cook County or Chicago, Cook County, where we are, and we started to develop somewhat of an expertise. I'm fast forwarding years now, but I'm trying to say where the ideas came from all started with nursing homes. And but I didn't feel we were the best. I mean, I think we were the best trial lawyers, but there's a body of knowledge that you develop, like we have in nursing home. Like I could give a nursing home case to the best trial lawyer in the United States who has never handled one. He would be able to try the case or she very well, but he wouldn't understand or she wouldn't understand how to work it up. Or they would eventually, but the time it would take them would be enormous because they're doing other kind of cases. So I wanted to hook up or join a truly knowledgeable person, someone whose knowledge I would say equaled ours in nursing homes or was even better. Because birth injury cases, again, they're personal injury cases, they're medical malpractice case, but there is a specialized body of knowledge of who are the experts, what are the issues. If you're on the plaintiff side, what is the defense talking about? Just many, many things that we just wouldn't know, no matter how much time, or we could probably learn, but it would take 10 times the amount of time. So we had done some business with a firm, Dove Affel and Seth Cardelli. They were with another firm at the time, and we had referred cases to it. And I had always admired Dove, who's my age, his work, because I did believe that he was the most knowledgeable person in the country in nursing home cases. And when you combine that with our skills and ability and our firm, and the ability to try cases, I thought this could be an unbelievable partnership. Thankfully, Dove shared my vision, and they had already been doing business in a number of states because people bring them into birth injury cases because not only are they highly specialized in knowledge, but they take a certain fortitude because they take a real long time. They involve many, many, many experts. They are very, very expensive to fund. So there's just a limited group of people that can handle these competently without, making that be their entire practice, which they can't do because they've never done it. So an intelligent lawyer would bring someone like Dove into the case. And rather, lawyers sometimes get a little narrowly focused and they don't want to share a fee and they, want to borrow your pleadings and they figure they look at 10 things and then all of a sudden they know what you know, but that's just not how it works. Another side note to this, if I could deviate a little in forming any kind of practice, I think we've exploded a lot of myths over time. Old people's lives have no value. Wrong. You can't try cases in small counties because they're much different. Wrong. That if you refer cases to someone or if you work with someone, now this is the business thing, they'll take over your practice or, they're taking your piece of the pie. Wrong. Every partnership we've ever formed expanded the pie for everyone. And there's just so after we had been with Dove, and this is, I think we've been doing this for about five or I don't know, I lose track of time, but probably 5 years. But after we've done it for a while, someone said to me, "What do you think it's working out? What's the greatest benefit?" Well, we've gotten spectacular results. We do have cases all over the country, but one of the greatest benefits to me personally was I knew the defense would never, ever know more than us
Yes. Yeah.
because they have done it so long that, and I knew that Dove and Seth can evaluate a case in, 1/10 of the time we could, because they already can call up all the main experts on the phone because they have pre-existing relationships and saying, am I barking up the wrong tree or not? Or they knew it themselves. I mean, for example, in nursing home cases, I think I'm better able to evaluate than a doctor or nurse. So when people say to me, well, we don't know if it's a case, we have to have the doctor and the nurse look at it, and it's nursing home, I'm saying you're in the wrong field. Okay, I mean, you need them, but
Right.
and that's what we now, our new partnership can do with birth injury cases. You give us the facts and we can tell you, and it's just based on long, long, long experience in doing it, what is or what is not a case, because especially in birth injuries and true in nursing home injuries, the cases you don't take are as important as the cases you do take.
Yes.
Because every time you take a case that requires far more work than you have time to do that you don't understand, far more money than your resources, and when you're always a little worried, which I am, because one of our mantras is prepare, prepare, prepare. If you're always a little worried that it's a nightmare. And when you have the case in the right time, now, if for example, if you're doing nursing, you want to start doing nursing home cases, number one piece of advice, self-serving, everyone's saying, is refer it to work, partner with a lawyer who's done it before. Partner 5 times. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to share the fee. Okay, well, share the fee because you'll wind up using that extra time. I tell this to people all the time, to referring lawyers. How about if we do all the stuff you would have to do not as well? Not because you're dumb, but just because it's not your field. How about if we do all that and you focus on A, learning it if that's what you want, and you can be as involved or not as you want in the case. And B, you can have time to market other cases or attend to what else you're doing.
Right.
And people just don't, for whatever reason, it's not human nature to graph that. They don't want to give something up. This will not win me a lot of friends, but I'm horrified when I read on listservs when someone says, "Oh, I just got my first nursing home case. Please tell me what complaint I should file,
No.
what the discovery is." And I'm laughing that these are PI lawyers doing this, and it happens not infrequently. And I'm thinking, what would they say if a cardiovascular surgeon got on their listserv and says, I'm a great cardiovascular surgeon, but I'm thinking of doing some hip surgery. Can you guys give me a little bit of background on how to do it? I
What
mean,
tool should I use? Where's
yeah,
which size scalpel?
yeah, right. I mean, it's hard enough staying on top of things in your own field, and they're just different fields, and lawyers don't realize that. And I'm laughing that if something ever goes wrong, if the malpractice occurred, I think I would have a field day as that plaintiff's lawyer reading these texts. Oh, so you've never done it before? Well, did you tell that to the client that this is like an experiment? I shouldn't say that because a lot of people put that on listservs daily. I guarantee if I go on any listserv, there will be people doing it. I don't understand it. I mean, I understand it. And by the way, it turns out they don't even, if it's money is what's causing them to think this, they don't make as much money. Number two, they have a poorer client relationship because they're so worried about, I would be if I was them, and doing something that they don't have time to mind the client. So there's no, it's, I think partnerships among lawyers, it's always been true in business, right? But I think among lawyers, it's becoming more accepted. But I've never been afraid to
Right.
share with the right people. And because I think that makes everyone better. It's certainly better for the client. I mean, which
Well,
is
and then you have a
theoretically what
higher
we're
risk
supposed to
of
do.
there's a higher risk for those attorneys to lose the case entirely.
Correct.
And I mean, if they were to think of this as essentially a paid apprenticeship where they could learn from somebody who is the best in the industry while still getting a great cut and not having to do as much work, it sounds like it'd be a no-brainer. Uh,
Right.
but I
And
guess I think a lot of times ego gets in the way, and I know that we're all guilty of that a little bit.
right.
And then obviously the monetary aspect of it. When you think of a big fish versus a little fish being entirely yours, it can be a little difficult for those mental hurdles. And so transitioning this to more of a general idea. I mean, clearly you have been able to find a specialty in birth injury and in nursing home abuse. But let's think about kind of more of a wider net when it comes to expanding a practice, a statewide practice to a national practice for the more traditional PI cases. Is there anything that you have learned from your experience that personal injury attorneys in general can apply to their practices as they are looking to expand and grow?
You mean nationally or just
Mhm.
in general?
Nationally.
I mean, nationally is a tough marketplace. The advantage of expanding nationally when you're in a unique practice area is much, much different than if you're going to expand nationally doing auto cases. Because number one, you're competing in the auto case areas nationally with firms that have enormous budgets. I mean, enormous, hundreds of millions of dollars. in advertising revenues and billboards and TV and social media and all the different ways. So that I don't know. That's a market that unless you're fully committed and have millions and millions of dollars to spend, or you're funded by someone who has millions and millions of dollars to spend, and most of these guys are people are funded by, now unfortunately Wall Street and all that has come into our business, but you can't compete. Medical malpractice general again is sort of hard because there's very, very specific state laws in medical malpractice cases that you would have to learn. And they're not, they're all different. They're unique cases. It's unlike, I say, we've all heard of mass torts where one product hurts a lot of people. So that's sort of standardized, right? You just say the product's wrong and the injury or the medicine is wrong and we know the people who have injury. Birth injury and nursing home cases are somewhere between mass torts and totally unique single event cases. They're standardized. The same things occur all the time. The same lawyers are involved. The same experts are involved. So that's different. But when you get into medical malpractice and expanding that nationally, again, you are making a huge commitment. And not only well, you have the case screening aspect, because you have to screen if you get advertised and you get a lot of calls, that screening process is extremely difficult. I mean, by the way, if you're going to advertise, that's an issue in and of itself. But if you're successful in advertising, then you have this whole screening cases because you have to screen a lot of birth injury cases before you find one that will stand up in court. So we like to say we will look at anyone's case, but unfortunately, we can't help everyone.
Right.
But fortunately, I think it's bad news to the client and to the lawyer, but it's good news to not put them through the trauma of a lawsuit that's not going to turn out correctly or that will have to be settled for a very small amount of money.
Yeah.
Which gets me back to fundamental legal thinking. People, used to say, young lawyers starting, well, I have to take all cases because if I don't take the small case, I won't get the big case. Wrong.
Oh,
If you take somebody's small case, number one, it probably won't work out well for you, and it won't work out well for the client because no client feels their case is small. So you'll have an unhappy outcome and you won't develop future business. Secondly, while you're killing yourself on this quote small case, the client then gets a relative who has a huge case and they go to the lawyer who handles huge cases.
yeah.
So that's a myth. I mean, you have to, carefully look at each case.
You have to be okay with saying
Secondly,
no. Yeah.
we haven't heard this one in a while, but it used to be referring lawyers would say, well, if I'm going to give you my big cases, you have to take my small cases. I would say no, because if I take your small cases, I won't be a big case lawyer. And I'll be spending all my time on small cases. And that's not why you're hiring me. Keep your own small cases or find, and I'll give you some names of lawyers who handle these types of cases. You'll be happier, they'll be happier, and save me for the cases where I'm good at and where we can make an impact.
Well,
These
and
are
that
such
goes back to what you were talking about with building referral networks. And it's not just, having a referral network for you to handle some of these other cases that the other lawyers don't specialize in, but you can build that referral network to hand down cases as well.
correct.
And so it can be a full operation and a big piece, I think, that is applicable to any attorney listening today is building your network is essential. And whether you are wanting to just expand in your local market or you're wanting to take on cases in other states, building those relationships, investing in those relationships, as well as your marketing, I have to say, SEO purposes over here.
Right.
But in general, getting out there and building those relationships is instrumental for any type of growth.
100%. And building relationships is not something you can cram for. Building relationships is literally something that you have to do every single day. And sort of, if you divide the world into people think there's just one pie and whatever piece I get, whatever piece someone else gets, I'm not going to get, versus the pie can be constantly expanding. A corollary of that is, oh, I forgot what I was going to say about this, but it's you just got to be willing to share, to expand things.
Well, and it
And
reminds me of my mom, where
but you
she,
had a good point. Oh, I know. The other point is people want in networking an exact quid pro quo. I've done this for you today. What are you going to do for me now?
right,
I recommend for people building networks is to, if someone needs your help and you can give it without expectation of getting
yes,
a return. And ironically, you probably get a better return if you don't expect one. So don't be afraid, to cast your bread upon the waters. And the worst thing that could happen, you've done something nice for someone that you feel you have a reason to do something nice for. But that's something you have to do every day. And if you take the single-minded approach, well, I'm not going to do that unless they give me a specific quid pro quo. It's just it doesn't expand a network.
no, and
And
you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
right,
And I mean, part of this, yes, is business development, but also so many personal injury attorneys go into this field because they have compassion for
right,
their clients. They have compassion for the lives of these other people. So entering into some of these referral relationships with a sense of compassion, saying, I bet Tony would be a really great lawyer for this case. I think that, it's good business for Tony, but the client is also going to have a great chemistry with him, and bringing that sense of empathy to these relationships and not expecting like it to be exact. It's going to be equitable even if it's not equal.
right. That well said. And if you look at it that way, and you know what turns out, I mean, people probably just starting out will say easier for me to say because we've had our successes, but if you do the right thing, it's best for the client, it's best for you, it's best for the relationship, and it usually works out that way, or it has a more likelihood of working out than if you're doing it a different way. And don't forget about the client. I mean, you cannot look a client in the eye and honestly say, look, this is my first time I've ever handled this type of case. I don't have the money to take this case all the way and still take it. I mean, lawyers say, well, how are you able to get good settlements because most cases still do settle. I said, well, good settlements are driven primarily by the other side's knowledge that you will try the case, period.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and people say, well, how do you get good settlements if you're not going to try the case? I says, well, actually, you don't. I mean, you may get a good settlement for a case that's not going to be tried, but it's not going to be the same thing. And those are just facts. And if you undertake a case for a client, and you know, here's also another corollary. I mean, I've had a whole bunch of theories I could tell people about, but another corollary that if I was just starting, I would never forget is the right way to practice our law is to try your good cases and settle the bad cases. But
Right.
in reality, sometimes it doesn't work out that way if you're worried about you don't have enough money or you're underfinanced, because then you get a good case and you settle it for far less than the case should be settled for. It's
Right.
just human nature to do that. So people say, well, I don't want to refer this really big case because, it's too big. Well, they will not, if they're inexperienced, get the same result or anywhere near the same result the top lawyer in that type of case will get.
Right. Well, and a
But
lot of that depends on what the client is looking for as well. If that client is really needing a quick settlement, quick turnaround on that, and they don't have the time to wait the 2 to 3 years for that case to go to trial and make it through and get that, then that might not be the right client for you in this particular case.
correct.
And
That's
I
a
was I
very
was
good point.
interviewing a lawyer who is out, I think, in New Jersey, and his law firm exclusively takes their cases to trial. They are not a settlement practice; they are a litigation practice,
Right.
and they do a lot of vetting within their firm. And even some of these, higher number cases, they have to let go because if this case is not going to go to trial, that's not what their business model is built around. So I think that that is an important piece to keep in mind. And regardless of what your internal philosophy is, you need to know what your internal philosophy is. Are you a
Correct.
litigation practice, or are you okay with settling, or is it a hybrid model? And be attracting the right types of clients that go along with whatever your business model is. So I think that
That's
that's
a
a
very,
good point
very
to bring up.
important point. Very, very important point. Right. And along with that, you have to establish that relationship with the client from day one.
Yes.
You have to tell the client how you're looking at it. I mean, people change their mind, that's fine, but you don't spring this idea on the client one way or the other for the first time after working on the case for 2.5 years.
Right. Let them
You
know the
tell them how long
expectations
the
up front.
case is gonna take. You tell them what's involved. You try to generally make sure you're on the same page. I mean, obviously, you have to have flexibility, but usually when you carefully explain things to people and your mind, you have a meeting of the minds, that works the best.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
sometimes people get busy and it doesn't happen. I mean, I'll confess it happens to us sometimes. We work very hard in the case, never discuss settlement or number, a settlement number with the client. An associate lawyer, springs it on them from my office right in the beginning. And a lot of times that doesn't work well
Right.
for obvious reasons,
Yeah.
right? So all these are lessons learned. No one is perfect. I'm not saying we've done everything I've said, but I think you made a huge point when you said you have to know what your business is. You have to know what your philosophy is. You have
Right.
to know what your culture is. And expanding nationally is the same thing. You want to be with, I never understood. Okay, so I started I had no business background at all. So I just started with, by myself. And I used to read tons of business books, how to develop a culture. And I was always a little suspicious of what that meant. To this day, it sounds stupid to me, but I think I now know what it is. A culture is like a well-raised family. It's a series of micro encounters you have on a daily basis with the people, and in this case, with the lawyers that you work with. And over time, you all develop a certain way of looking at things. And part of the culture also is to allow an opportunity to change. If someone breaks out and say, we've been looking at taking expert steps in these cases, that's probably not a good idea. It's a waste of time. Let's stop doing it. But have the flexibility to relook at our assumptions, which takes a lot of work, but still within the context of the culture. And many times what happens, and you notice it dramatically, and we've had some notable lack of successes in this area, where we've hired a lateral who looks like a good lawyer, has all the credentials, but just does not look at the legal world in the same way, representing plaintiffs in medical malpractice, birth injury, nursing, the same way. And it's very hard to get that culture. And it'll be like taking a 15-year-old kid who was raised in a certain family and then moving that kid off to a totally different family. And they're not looking at the world in the same way. So a strong culture, a strong base enables you to expand easier because you know what you're looking for, and you can almost instantly see. I was talking to a lawyer who has a huge, they're a huge national marketing firm, huge referral network, and they're trying to now objectify some of this data, like how long does it take this law firm they're referring cases to resolve a case? What are their average settlements? So they have a number of hard numbers, which may help them. But I was struck by how she said, the soft numbers, she says, I can tell when I talk to a lawyer that I want to refer a case to in another state. So we've talked about referring cases out. You can also develop a business handling cases that come into your state. She said, but when I talk to a lawyer in another state, I can just tell how they talk. They either talk like a trial lawyer or they don't. I just she said she instinctively knows the difference.
Right.
And they don't say certain words like they don't, this is a brain damaged baby case. Well, it's not. It's a series of events that happen to someone. This is we settle bed sore cases for 100,000. But there's no such. There is an injury called a bed sore, but they're all different.
Right. There's
And,
not a bed sore case.
and there's no medical damages. We'll never do it. Well, this county is terrible. I learned that from my national practice. I had a friend. I have a friend, a great trial lawyer from Austin, Texas. And he used to try cases, nursing home cases. He was part of this group. He did all kinds of cases, but in small counties, he said where the courthouse would be in the basement of the church. And the conventional wisdom is, well, these people don't give a lot of money and it's bad. He says, if you impact the values that they hold dear, and what he said 20 years ago is 10 times true now. I mean, because people are just angry and they don't want people messing with their lives. And it's just a whole different atmosphere, good for our business, maybe not so good for it. But he said, like he gave this example. He said, let me talk about the McDonald's case. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, everyone says the McDonald's case, in the old days, the spilled coffee case was not good for business. He says, I'm not sure about that. He said, everyone in every small county has heard of the McDonald's case, and they heard that someone got millions of dollars for spilling coffee on themselves. He says, now everyone knows that a bad case is worth millions of dollars. What about our case? And how true is that today? There's no local jurisdictions anymore,
Right.
unless they don't have the internet,
Right. Right.
right? I mean,
Exactly.
the people are different, but there's demographically people. It's the old thing. Everything is different today. It's not like, well, I want white jurors, I want black jurors, who talks like that anymore? Because people, it's just everyone sort of on the issues that influence our cases has the same body of knowledge.
Right. Well, and that's the amazing thing about the internet is it gives equitable access to any information that anybody needs. And it has completely changed the landscape, both in terms of social as well as legal landscape, just having immediate access to all of this information and just watching the developments of that over the years. And especially now as we are on the cusp of the AI
Right.
influence here. I mean, who knows what everything is going to look like within the next 5 to 10 years. So, but with that in mind, looking at the future, what is next on the horizon for Levin and Perconti?
Well, I think we're going to we are going to continue pursuing the type of cases we're good at: nursing home, birth injury, medical malpractice cases. And another example, lawyers will say they handle catastrophic injury cases. Oh, like what PI lawyer is looking for non-cat? But it's
Be the
but
mild ones. I want the sprained ankles.
yeah, right. Oh, the greatest, by the way, if I could do a little aside, would be a divorce lawyer came up with a great marketing campaign. He called it Men's Rights. So
Mm,
in every divorce, in a heterosexual marriage, there's a man and a woman.
right.
So he developed, quote, a supposed expertise. Oh, I want to go to, if I'm a man, I want to go to this guy.
Yeah.
Like, but the catastrophic is the same thing. But practice areas, what's next for us? I think to continue to think outside the box.
Right.
I started to write a book, and I said the title of the book should be the the biggest risk is often the one you don't take. Don't be afraid to move into different areas. Don't be afraid to rethink your processes. Use the book Moneyball as your example. Now look at the number of statistics they have. In the old days, they didn't want the overweight short catcher who didn't look like the classic movie star center fielder. So look at situations differently. Look at how we handle cases differently. A lot of the systems that we still have going on and how to process a personal injury case were invented before the internet,
Right.
before word processors. Think of this. We used to have to, we're researching a medical malpractice case. We had to send someone to a medical library to find one book, to Xerox 7 pages, to hope that's what the expert was talking about. Okay, now we know more than the experts because
Right.
there's no data that is not accessible to anyone. I mean, in AI, I had a medical test today. I couldn't understand the results. I put it into AI. They told me what it said, what the treatment would be, what questions to ask my doctor. This happened today before this call. I talked to my doctor 15 minutes later. I didn't tell her I did this and I didn't, but I could have been reading from AI
Right.
about what she said.
Right.
So that's the big thing. Be curious. Don't be judgmental. Don't reject new ideas about marketing, about how to handle a case, about how to handle the type of cases you think you might want to handle. I mean, test your assumptions, but test them. Don't just do things because people like me always did it that way. Find your own way while maintaining a solid base. I mean, I think that's the single most important advice I can give someone is, read a lot, study a lot. That's another thing. When I started, I didn't have, like this podcast. Someone to get the benefit of my knowledge for free by listening to your podcast. And there are thousands of podcasts. I can't tell you how many podcasts I consume, not only in the legal area and the trial practice area mainly, but in persuasion and marketing and related fields. We didn't have that, when we started. You can learn everything. You can find out what the best are doing in every area. And if you're not doing that, you're not developing as a lawyer. So you can read about it, you can listen to it in an audio book, you could watch it on a video while you're on the treadmill. I have consumed hours and hours. So I pride myself, although, I'm not in the beginning of my career anymore, of being ahead of a lot of the younger lawyers, partly because I have more time than they do, because I'm not, quote, working on cases every second, but I have the inclination, and there's nothing that is currently happening in the legal world that I don't know about. And
Well,
that's
and I
because I
think
read
that's the
and
bottom
consume, and
line.
I love it. I love what I do.
Yeah. And those are the biggest takeaways that you can have if you want to grow your practice nationally, which is if you want to grow your network and grow your knowledge, and then things will come from there. So thank you, Steve, so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Lindsay. Look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely.